A silver dinner gong echoed through Buckingham Palace just after 8, summoning the tight nucleus of working royals to a table laid for triumph, 12 hand-gilded plates, a sweep of red roses down the center, and crystal glasses glinting beneath chandeliers older than electricity itself. The official reason was innocent enough, a quiet celebration of a record fundraising quarter. But anyone who has lived long beneath these ceilings knows the truth. The palace rarely gathers its power players without an unspoken agenda. By the time the Dorset crab arrived, that hidden purpose hovered over the china like a chill draft from the Thames. King Charles eased into his toast with the warmth of a man who believes in redemption stories. He praised Camilla's literacy campaign, commended Catherine's early years initiative, thanked Anne for a punishing fortnight of maritime inspections, and saluted William's climate tech summit in Manchester. As the monarch sat, conversation tumbled easily, court gossip, rescue pony anecdotes, the inevitable teasing about Louis's gap-toothed grin. From outside, the distant thrum of London traffic felt impossibly far away. Then came the pivot, as soft as a silk napkin unfolding. Camilla's newly appointed private secretary floated a remark about expanding staff to manage a broader ceremonial remit. 2 words, broader remit, landed like grit in an oyster. Princess Anne set down her fork, squared her shoulders, and without raising her voice addressed the woman who now wore Queen Mary's diamond crown. "Your queen consort," she said, each syllable level and unmistakable, not the queen. Silence followed, a freeze so complete the footman seemed to fade into the tapestry. Charles cleared his throat with a nervous half-laugh. Camilla replied with a courteous, "My only aim is to serve His Majesty," yet colour had left her cheeks. William instinctively glanced at Catherine, who, notebook in hand, looked ready to steer conversation back to charity metrics. But the spell wouldn't break. 8 words had reignited a tension that has shadowed this family since Diana first slipped her engagement ring on camera. To outsiders, Anne's correction might sound like quibbling over semantics. Inside these walls, titles are the load-bearing beams of the crown, and shifting a single one can tilt the entire facade. Since Elizabeth II's death, Camilla's office has inched forward extra aides, larger travel budgets, talk of placing her personal cipher on Commonwealth Day programs. Harmless administrative housekeeping, supporters claim. Mission creep, muttered those who revere precedent. And had promised her mother that Camilla would remain consort, a step behind, visible yet not central. Watching that promise blur has tested a loyalty that rarely cracks in public. Family history sharpens the sting. Half a century ago, before tabloids coined the triangle that would define a generation, and herself shared a brief romance with cavalry officer Andrew Parker Bowles. Church rules and family caution ended it, but echoes linger. Andrew married Camilla. Camilla married Charles. And kept riding, saluting, inspecting, never missing a day's work, yet every now and then the ghosts of unfinished chapters circle back, dressed in new uniforms. People who know and say she is less sentimental than strategic. She reads polling the way a sailor reads clouds, and recent numbers worry her. Among Britons under 30, Catherine enjoys a 70+ approval rating. Camilla, even after 18 tireless years of public service, rarely breaks 50. Analysts track a correlation. Whenever Camilla's role feels elevated, Republican hashtags pulse brighter. The Princess Royal fears that one blurred title could erode 1,000 years of slow-forged legitimacy. William feels the tension from another angle. His affection for his father is deep, but so is the imprint of childhood pain. Camilla brings stability to Charles. To William she remains, at best, an accepted necessity. He is courteous always, but the warmth he bestows on Catherine and his children rarely crosses to his stepmother. At dinner, observers noticed a faint tightening around his eyes each time Camilla's staff upgrades were discussed. He said little, but distance can be eloquent. Catherine's instinct was to rescue the evening. She shifted talk toward early years research, flashes of playground statistics, invitations for everyone to visit her upcoming exhibition. Most responded with relief. Yet even as Camilla nodded, the undercurrent of comparison remained. The Princess of Wales embodies the monarchy's future, glossy, relatable, scandal-proof, and each new poll cements her as public favorite. For a woman who spent decades inching from other woman to queen consort, standing beside such popularity could feel like trudging uphill through treacle. After dessert, lakes of lemon posset crowned with spun sugar, Charles rose once more, voice steadier now. He offered a toast to unity, to Elizabeth's memory, to the unshakable bond of service that outlives any title. Glasses clinked. Optics restored. But as footmen cleared the final plates, aides along the wall exchanged discreet looks. They had all heard and sentence. Its implications would occupy briefing rooms long after the candles burned low. The Princess Royal left early the next morning, driving herself to the coast in a battered estate car, refusing the ministerial Range Rover. At the lifeboat station she shook every volunteer's hand, smiled for phone cameras, and wrote a check to replace weather-battered radios. Reporters probed about last night. She praised the fishermen, joked about sea spray ruining her blow-dry, and moved on. On the return drive she phoned her private secretary, no schedule changes, full steam ahead. In London, Camilla's communications team crafted a compassionate press note, congratulations to a children's reading contest winner, condolences to flood victims in Derbyshire. The message rang with kindness, reminding followers why her diary holds 250 engagements a year. Yet even the friendliest commentators detected subtext. Deeds, not definitions, would be her shield. Charles faced the thorniest calculus of his reign. If he sided publicly with his sister, he risked wounding the partner who steadied him through scandal, grief, and cancer. If he silenced Anne, he might fracture the bridge between his mother's promise and his own aspirations for a modernized court. After 2 days of quiet consultation, he settled on a typically nuanced edict. Programs would continue styling Camilla as queen consort. Any future adjustments to ceremonial precedents must clear both the private secretary and the Lord Chamberlain. No more crest experiments, no expansions without committee approval. Anne's language had found its way into royal policy, written in the courteous passive voice that keeps Windsor truces intact. The compromise calmed markets, the metaphorical ones, measured in public sentiment rather than currency. Soldiers rehearsed garden party drill, palace press officers greenlit Camilla's autumn tour of Yorkshire libraries, Catherine filmed a short piece about toddler language delays, William visited an offshore wind farm, camera crews marveling at turbines taller than St. Paul's. The machine whirred on. Yet each event carried the afterglow of 8 carefully pronounced words. Courtiers spoke of them the way mariners chart hidden shoals, invisible, but strike them once and a hull may leak forever. What no newsletter could fully capture was the shift those words sparked in private hearts. Charles began returning to the small crimson box of his mother's notes, rereading the memo in which she first expressed the sincere hope Camilla would one day be known as queen consort. And tightened her travel diary, doubling down on provincial engagements historians call the monarchy's iron rations, shipyard visits, ploughing contests, youth club anniversaries. Camilla increased her hospital rounds, turning up without photographers, hugging nurses who burst into tears. Catherine redoubled meetings with child psychology scholars, already sketching a 10-year plan she hopes will define her generation. And in Norfolk, far from strategy dinners, William walked the sand dunes with his eldest son, explaining, gently, but without fairytale varnish, how words spoken in one gilded room can ripple across a nation. Somewhere down that same shoreline, Kate collected shells with Charlotte, telling her that leadership sometimes means listening harder than you speak. Louis built a driftwood fortress, blissfully unaware of palace semantics. Across the Atlantic, podcasters buzzed about and the Terminator and whether Charles might eventually issue a letters patent curbing the consort's reach. Australian morning shows debated if William could, on accession, revisit every title in one stroke of ink. Opinion columnists revived dormant Republic arguments, monarchists counter-tweeted with Anne's lifetime tally of 21,000 engagements and Camilla's reading room statistics. The Crown, as ever, thrived on conversation, supportive or skeptical, so long as it roared with attention. Inside Buckingham Palace the grandfather clock resumed its measured pacing. Staff switched off chandeliers, leaving starlight to pool on parquet floors. Somewhere overhead, a sister and a consort lay awake composing tomorrow's speeches, each aware that the timetable of history had lurched half a notch. Charles slept lightly, pen by his bedside, knowing dawn might demand another compromise. The monarchy's survival has always depended on tiny mid-course corrections before storms grow visible to crowds on the Mall. And so the story moves forward 2 steps in ceremony, one in private negotiation, toward a coronation day years away when cameras will again dissect who stands where, who bows to whom, whose cipher graces the program. On that morning, analysts will trace the lineage of precedents back to a midsummer dinner when Princess Anne calmly reminded a roomful of gilded power that words still matter more than diamonds. If following those quiet but decisive moments keeps you returning, stay close. We'll be here to catch every shifted glance, every footnote that tips the balance of a 1,000-year story. Your support lets us keep tracking the pulse beneath the pageantry, so tap subscribe and travel the next chapter with us. London's street lamps fade, dawn slips between palace columns, and the echo of 8 gentle words still circles the marble hall. Titles hold, alliances flex, and the crown balances once more on the knife edge of tradition and change.